Hi, my name is Janet Gibson, and I'm here to talk to you today about the cautionary tale of the three pigs and how it relates to financial preparedness. Preparedness, that's such an interesting word. I bet you are here today watching this because preparedness is important to you. It's important to me too. And who would have guessed at the beginning of this year that preparedness would impact all of us so much? Who knew that toilet paper and hand sanitizer would be such hot items that people would run from store to store to make sure they got the last roll or the last bottle? Not you probably. You probably already had a stash set away, right? Well, before we get started on this journey, let me tell you just a little bit about me. I've been in the investment and finance industry for about 21 years now, and my passion has been to help people get their little financial ducks in a row. I've also led CERT teams, community emergency response teams, for both Los Angeles Fire Department and on a community level for several years. So my two worlds collide in this topic. Now, preparedness is an interesting word. Some people get all excited about it, probably like you, like me. There are even some people, I think, who really even want a mini disaster they can see how all their stuff works. Other people, you say the word preparedness, and they roll their eyes and they look at you and they say, "Are you a prepper?" Well, again, we had no idea how important this whole topic would be at the beginning of 2020. What I'm going to talk to you about today is how to become not just financially prepared, but also financially secure. And a lot of times people think that in order to have financial security, you need a great job with a big salary and good benefits. But know what? That's not true. Even those folks with those great jobs, they lost those positions overnight. Many people lost their jobs over the last several months. And unfortunately, those great jobs and those big salaries did nothing to prepare people for what was coming. So what does it take to become financially prepared? Well, here's the good news. You can do this. Anybody can do this. The bad news is it's going to take some choices, it's going to take some time, some effort, and it's ultimately your responsibility. So let's get on to the three pigs. You remember the story, right? There's three little pigs hanging out. They get word the big bad wolf is coming, and they've got to figure out what to do. So the first little pig, he's pretty much a slacker. He doesn't work that hard, but he very quickly gathers up a bunch of straw and he builds a straw house. Well, the wolf comes, don't need to tell you what happens there, right? The second little pig, he takes a bit more time. He gathers up some sticks, he builds himself a stick house, and the wolf comes, and same result. The third little pig, well, he was made fun of by the first two because he spent some time drawing out his plans, making bricks, putting together a reinforced brick house. Now, I know that's not in the original story, but in California, we know that we have earthquakes, so that brick house better be reinforced. Big bad wolf comes, he huffs and he puffs, and he can't blow the house down. So what kind of house are you and your family living in right now? A straw house, a stick house, or a brick house? Well, let's go through what it takes to build a brick house. And there's several different layers to this. So a brick house, the first layer is insurance strategy. It's also called protection strategy. And I know the word insurance doesn't make people feel warm and fuzzy, but we're going to talk about a couple types that are pretty darn important for you and your family. The first is life insurance. Life insurance is necessary if you have anybody who's dependent upon your income at all. So if you have kids, you have a spouse that doesn't work, you have elderly parents you're taking care of, you need life insurance. Let's go back to the kids for just a second. This is my opinion. If you brought kids into this world, you have a moral obligation to make sure that those kids are taken care of until they can take care of themselves. Whether you're here or not really doesn't alleviate that responsibility. You definitely need life insurance. Another is health insurance. Health insurance, we all know that there are people out there who have lost their livelihoods because they got sick or injured and didn't have the proper coverage. Super important. Auto insurance, if you drive a car, yeah, you need auto insurance, no doubt. Well, let's move on to something that's a little bit more interesting, and that is an emergency fund. That's the next layer. An emergency fund really became important again over the last several months. Now, if you and your business were deemed non-essential arbitrarily, you lost your income, your ability to take care of your family. And if you were waiting for stimulus from the government or unemployment checks, I'm sure there was a period of time where you were incredibly stressed out. An emergency fund allows you to bypass all that and take that responsibility on yourself by having 1, 3, 6 months worth of your living expenses already taken care of, set aside somewhere safe where you can get to it in a heartbeat. Most people do not have an emergency fund, and it is incredibly important. But see, here's the thing. Unlike insurance, which you can just go out and purchase, it takes time to build an emergency fund. When you're working, you have to make the decision to forego some of the things that you like Starbucks or whatever, and take a little bit of money and put it aside every single month until you have that 1 to 6 months emergency fund taken care of. Well, I know what you're thinking is, all my money's spoken for. I don't have extra. Well, that brings us to the next layer, which is called your spending plan or your savings plan, or it could be even called a budget. Boy, that's a word people really love. A budget gives you freedom. A budget does not cause lack. And I think that's super important. When you have your money spoken for in many categories, you all of a sudden have control over it. Most people, however, this is how their finances look. They make this, they spend this, they charge that. That's not a good way to go. What you need to do is make this, spend this, save that. If you do that, you're well on your way to being financially secure, and you don't need that big income. Not necessary. Let me give you an idea of what happens when people try to budget, but they don't understand that there's 2 ways to look at it. And I want you to pay attention really close here. Listen carefully. Is your budget a reflection of your spending, or is your spending a reflection of your budget? So most of the time when I work with families and I ask them if they have a budget, they grin sheepishly and then they hand me their bank statements and they say, well, this is our budget. No, that's not your budget. That is a reflection of your spending. What I ask people to do is to look hard at the expenses that they can control, like food, gasoline, entertainment. We're going to look at food this time. And figure out a nominal amount of money that they can spend on a monthly basis to feed their families. And then stick to it. But here's what happens. Let's say you have a family of 4 and you've decided that $600 is a good amount of money for a monthly food budget. And you get to the end of the month and you look down and you realize you have $5 left, but you had planned on having steak for dinner. Well, there's 3 things you can do. 1, you can blow it off and say, I want steak, and that's what we're going to have. I can guarantee you will never be financially secure if you do that, ever. Number 2, you look at your budget, you look at the steak, and you say, okay, that's $20 more than I have in my budget, so I'm just going to take from next month and use it this month. You're going to kick the can down the road. You will never be financially secure with that kind of decision making. Or number 3, you look at your budget and you say, I've got $5 left, and you say, family, we're having pasta tonight. We'll have steak in a week when we have the new budget. You are well on your way to being financially secure. It's those little decisions, time and time again, that will create either financial security, financial preparedness, financial independence, or not. And it all lies with you. Now, what happens when you actually make this, spend this, and save this? Well, a lot of things. You can take that money and you can apply it to your emergency fund, or you can take that money and invest it for your retirement. And that's the next layer. And notice I said invest, I didn't save. 2 entirely different creatures. When you invest, you absorb a certain amount of risk for it to grow. And when you save, there's no risk, it stays the same. There's applications for both. But when we talk about investing for your retirement, we're talking about taking money and putting it somewhere where it has the opportunity to grow. But sometimes that's uncomfortable for people. And we're going to talk about how investing is also a lot like going to the amusement park. It sounds weird, doesn't it? Well, let me ask you. When you were a kid, when you were in high school, maybe early 20s, and you went to Magic Mountain, what kind of rides did you go on? I know, you went on the big roller coasters, right? So did I. Fun. Scared the heck out of me. I prayed that the engineers knew what they were doing, but by the time I got off, I had a permagrin. I was so excited I wanted to do it again. You the same? Well, let me ask you, would you take your grandmother or your great-grandmother on that ride? I hope not. What kind of ride would your great-grandmother want to go on? And sometimes people say the teacups, and I think, are you serious? You must be in the will. There's no way you're putting great-grandma on those teacups. How about the carousel? Very little up and down. Great-grandma doesn't even have to hang on to the pole if she doesn't want to, right? But you, as a teenager, you'd about want to shoot yourself if you were on the carousel, correct? But each one's appropriate for somebody. Well, that's what investing is. It's the exact same thing. Oftentimes I ask people, what do you think about the word investing or stock market? And they give me words like gambling, risk, loss, fear, up and down. Same words could actually be used when describing a roller coaster, right? Understanding that the stock market is one of the best ways for most people to gain wealth over time is really important, but it's scary, especially when you think about emotions. People get very emotional about their money, and they don't like it when the market goes down. But let me ask you, where do you like to shop? If you had some extra money and you earmarked that for fun, what would you do with it? Would you go to a shoe store, a toy store, electronics? What if your favorite store actually called you and said, hey, for our special customers, tomorrow for 3 hours, we're going to have 80% off our entire inventory. What would you do? I bet you would rearrange your schedule and you would be there, right? Well, that's exactly what happens when the market goes down. It goes on sale. The quality of the goods and services that you buy don't change. So the quality of your toothpaste didn't change. The quality of your gas didn't change. And thank goodness the quality of your toilet paper didn't change. All that changed was the price that it was perceived at. So one of the biggest issues that we have with people is helping them understand that you need to remain calm when the markets are volatile. Now, over the last 40 years, the stock market has returned between 10 and 12%, yet the average investor has only received 2 to 3%. Why is that? Well, let me ask you, are you a econ major or a finance major? Probably not, but I bet you can answer this question for me. How do you make profit? Do you buy high and sell low? Or do you buy low and sell high? Right? I've never had anybody not answer that question correctly. But why is it when the market goes down, people panic and they pull their money out? Why is it they do the exact opposite of what they just told me is correct? They buy high and sell low. They do that out of fear. And if you do that just a few times in your life, again, you can pretty much guarantee you will never be financially secure. So understanding the ups and downs, just like being on a roller coaster, hang on, wait till the ride is done, don't get out in the middle. That's not good, not a good strategy. So once we get people understanding how to deal with their retirement, there's another thing off in the distance that we need to remember to manage, and that's debt. Debt will burn your house down. How does that happen? Well, imagine it's a cold day, it's rainy, and you build a huge fire in your fireplace. And that thing is just roaring. And then you get a phone call from a friend, and they said, we'd love you to come over. And you just walk out the door and you leave that fire burning. You don't shut the screen. Is there a chance when you come home that your house might not even be standing? Well, that's what debt does to your house. If you don't constantly monitor it, mitigate it, and eventually extinguish it, it could burn down your house. And that's a tragedy. The final aspect of a financial brick house is income. And you're into preparedness. You understand this phrase, redundancy. 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is done. When it comes to power, I bet you have extra flashlights, extra batteries, a generator or two, correct? What kind of redundancy do you have for your income? Now, I don't care if it's walking the dog, making jewelry, working at a retail shop. When your main source of income was deemed non-essential, did you have a way to pivot to create income to keep the lights on, to keep the food cool, just like a generator would do if you lost your power? This is one of the most important things that I think people need to understand in gaining financial security is you can't rely on one source of income. So you put all these things together and what you have is a financial brick house. Now here's the thing, a tiny brick house is way better than a straw mansion. You can do this, I promise. It just takes effort and takes a little time. But you want to be that third pig, because remember, it didn't end well for pigs 1 and 2. My name's Janet Gibson. You can reach me at my office, 818-239-3847. Again, Janet Gibson, 818-239-3847. Thank you so much.